Friday, December 14th, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. The title of my video today is Piketty versus Bastiat, fallacy versus common sense. So who is Piketty, or Thomas Piketty? Now, he's a very in vogue economist in the last few years. He's written a book called Capital in the 21st Century. He has a PhD in economics, and his specialization is on inequality and how the inequality of nowadays can be solved. The other one is Frederick Bastiat. He's also French, like Mr. Piketty, but unlike him, he wrote a book as well called The Law. It's only 75 pages. He wasn't a PhD economist, and he died in 1850. Mr. Piketty's, or Dr. Piketty's book has 696 pages. Mr. Bastiat's book has 75. Why am I talking and comparing these two authors today? Well, because I think it's very important to talk about the differences between their philosophies, especially in what relates to what's going on today with populism, the Gilets jaunes, Brexit, and everything else. Before I go further into this comparison, of course, I'll look at the markets this morning and see what they're doing. It's around 7:30 a.m. London. So stock markets and the markets yesterday were quite boring, I would say. They didn't really move around that much. S&P, I think, was slightly down. They were able to keep the Dow up and like goosed it up in the last 20 minutes or so. This morning, though, stock markets are weaker. Gold and silver are weaker as well. I still recommend long-term, the only safe money to protect yourself against, the bankers' fiat money, credit, paper, are precious metals. They have a track record of over, thousands of years, and they maintain your purchasing power and preserve your wealth. So we've got gold right now at $1239.50, down just over $2. Range has been $1243 to $1239. Key level now is $1250, I would say. On the downside, pretty much around here, $1235.40 should be good support. Looking at the chart of gold, it looks like we're just consolidating right now before going higher. We'll have to see. Silver did well yesterday. It was up most of the day. Almost got up to like another key level, which is around $14.90. This morning, though, it's back down. It's down 10 cents at $14.64. Still at above key support around $14.53. What about the stock markets? Well, the stock markets are back down today. The Dow is down 212 as I speak here, down 0.86%, 24,373. S&P is down 25 points at 2623, or almost 1%. And the NASDAQ 100 future is down 1.2% at 6682. Currencies, the pound is weaker this morning, is down 0.25%, 126.15. The euro's down slightly, 0.1%, 113.50. The dollar yen is unchanged, 113.56. Dollar is a bit stronger against the yuan, up almost 1/3%. It's 689.70. Crude oil rebounded yesterday quite well yesterday afternoon, but right now it's down about 0.75%. WTI 52.43, Brent 61.03. Let's have a look at the 10-year yield, and the bond market. Well, 10-year yield has dropped 3 basis points this morning. Is at 288. Thomas Piketty versus Frederick Bastiat. And what I would say, fallacy versus common sense. And well, why fallacy, Thomas Piketty? Well, let's have a look at what Thomas Piketty says. What Wikipedia says about Thomas Piketty. He was born in 1971. He's a French economist whose work focuses on wealth and income inequality. He's a professor or a directeur d'études at the School for Advanced Studies in the Social Sciences, EHESS, associate chair at the Paris School of Economics, and centennial professor at the International Inequalities Institute. So they even got an Inequalities Institute. And I'm not like saying that inequality is not a problem, but I just think this is not the way to go about it, to solve or to alleviate inequality. I think, honestly, I think there will always be inequality. It's just the degrees of inequality. The Western world is going more and more towards a third world, degree of inequality. Unlike, it was in the 50s and 60s, I would say. And it goes on to say, Piketty is the author of the best-selling book, Capital in the 21st Century, 2013, which emphasizes the themes of his work on wealth concentration and distribution over the past 250 years. Now looking at the book, they've even got a Wikipedia page for this book. I'll read here. It says, the central thesis of the book is that inequality is not an accident, but rather a feature of capitalism and can only be reversed through state interventionism. The book thus argues that unless capitalism is reformed, the very democratic order will be threatened. Well, and he uses these equations to measure how inequality has grown and what government has to do, maybe tax the rich and things like that. And to be honest, I haven't bought this book, and maybe I should buy it and read it and see what it's all about. But I would say that I would almost bet, that he never talks about the nature of the capital that we have these days. He doesn't talk about the fact that capital right now is not real capital. It's debt created by the state and their client banking system through issuance out of thin air. And that's, it's not, capital is not based on value like it should be, on the most marketable commodity, whatever that may be. In the last few thousand years, gold and silver have been the most marketable commodity that allow for storing your wealth, your labor, and not being cheated by government and the fiat system. But I would bet this guy, having studied, let's see where he's gone to school again. He's gone to London School of Economics. He's gone to École Normale Supérieure. He's taught at the Paris School of Economics, which he founded. He's also been to MIT. I can bet that he doesn't ask the question. He looks at these equations. It's 700 pages long, almost the book. He looks at the equations and says, and he says, oh yeah, that's why there's inequality, but he doesn't look at the, how can I say, the nature of the capital. And what he's talking about is not real capital that's created by effort and value, in that he doesn't question the monetary system, I would bet. He doesn't talk about, what Rothbard talks about, how government has hijacked our money. So his solution is, this is the case of two wrongs will make a right. I totally agree that it is wrong that government, how can I say, gives the legal power to the banking system to create this phony capital. Of course it will create inequality. But I also think it's wrong for the government to take away that power and redistribute it and continue to say, to give these banking powers the power to issue this money. I bet you he didn't say anything about that we need to abolish central banks, that we need to go back to a real sound money. So will it correct anything? No. So that what I'm trying to say here is that two wrongs don't make a right. We've had, of course, corporate fascism, which has created this inequality, but we should not also have the people's fascism, which will, create more problems. So that's the fallacy of Piketty, Thomas Piketty, is that I'm sure he doesn't look at the underlying problem, which is the money has been corrupted by the state. And the state should not be involved in money. And that's where I'll come up to Frederic Bastiat in a minute. So these are the kind of people that like Piketty. 27th September 2015, it was announced that he had been appointed to the British Labour Party's Economic Advisory Committee and convened by Shadow Chancellor John MacDonald and reporting to Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn. Well, Jeremy Corbyn is Marxist, right? And Frederic Bastiat died in 1850. He was trying to expose and trying to guard, make people aware that socialism doesn't work. And he wrote this brilliant book, which I recommend this anytime, any day over Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty. I don't really want to spend my hard-earned wealth or saved wealth buying Thomas Piketty's book, which advises the government to take wealth away. Why should I buy this book? But I recommend The Law, though, by Bastiat. So who is Frederic Bastiat? So let's have a look here. It says, Frederic Bastiat, 1801-1850, so he died quite young, was a French economist, statesman, and writer. His uncompromising defenses of free trade, the market economy, and individual liberty pitted him against politicians both right and left. So you see, he wasn't in this right and left game. Mr. Piketty, or Dr. Piketty, is. He has a PhD in economics. I have to say, I'm not against PhDs, but in economics, I think it's a bad sign. His writings include Economic Sophisms, which champion free trade, Economic Harmonies, a treatise on economic principles, plus a host of essays including The State and What is Seen and What is Not Seen. To this day, his witty aphorisms and incisive arguments are quoted by public figures, speakers, and writers everywhere. So the other point I'd like to make, in Wikipedia it says here for Thomas Piketty, influences. So it has John Maynard Keynes. Does it have Frederic Bastiat? No, it's a shame, isn't it? I guess he wouldn't be writing, he wouldn't have written this book if he had read about Frederic Bastiat and his book, The Law. So I want to look into this book a little bit and give you a few snippets of what Mr. Bastiat says. Well, first of all, what is the law according to him? It says, the law perverted and the police powers of the states perverted along with it. The law, I say, not only turned from its proper purpose, but made to follow an entirely contrary purpose. The law become the weapon of every kind of greed. Instead of checking crime, the law itself, guilty of the evils it is supposed to punish. If this is true, it is a serious fact, and moral duty requires me to call the attention of my fellow citizens to it. So basically saying, the state is using its power to actually break the law, to confiscate your property, to create property by counterfeiting. That's the other crime that the state has done, is using the law, because by counterfeiting, and pretending they create money, which is this capital effect Piketty talks about, they're able to extract wealth from the workers, from the rich, from everyone. That's why two wrongs don't make a right. So what else does it say? Well, the complete perversion of the law. But unfortunately, law by no means confines itself to its proper function. And when it has exceeded its proper functions, it has not done so merely in some inconsequential and debatable matters. The law has gone further than this. It has acted in direct opposition to its proper purpose. The law has been used to destroy its own objective. It has been applied to annihilating the justice that it was supposed to maintain, to limiting and destroying rights which its real purpose was to respect. The law has placed the collective force at the disposal of the unscrupulous who wish, without risk, to exploit the person, liberty, and property of others. It has converted plunder into a right, the state plunder, legal plunder, in order to protect plunder. And it has converted lawful defense into a crime in order to punish lawful defense. So he ends the book by saying, "Let us now try liberty." And I'll read, and I'll quote, "God has given to men and women," I guess, back then, they didn't have they weren't politically correct, all that is necessary for them to accomplish their destinies. He has provided a social form as well as a human form. And these social organs of persons are so constituted that they will develop themselves harmoniously in the clean air of liberty. Away then with quacks and organizations, away with their rings, chains, hooks, and pincers, away with their artificial systems, away with the whims of governmental administrators, their socialized projects, their centralization, their tariffs, their government schools, their state religions, their free credit, their bank monopolies, their regulations, their restrictions, their equalization by taxation, and their pious moralizations. And now that the legislators and do-gooders have so futilely inflicted so many systems upon society, may they finally end where they should have begun. May they reject all systems and try liberty. For liberty is an acknowledgement of faith in God and His works. So what is my conclusion? Well, my conclusion is Piketty represents, this idea that the public needs special bureaucrats, people that are supposedly better than them to run their lives. Well, as you just saw there, Frederic Bastiat believes in the potential of human beings and freedom and liberty, and that the state should be minimal and there just to protect the individual's property and life. So there you go. Piketty versus Bastiat. Fallacy versus common sense. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it far and wide, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.